So Bob, tell me what challenges you think people face in building a business, especially at this day and age. What are the greatest challenges?
Well, time is certainly a huge component of just getting enough work done. You're working much harder, making less money, so time is just a huge part of the equation. Understanding how to close sales is a equally important component on selling. Knowing how to make connections. A great example today is I started working with our clients about, you ever notice how somebody says they're going to refer somebody to you and then that never happens? So we're trying to do one-on-ones where people are meeting, going through information that they can share with each other, and then instead of saying, okay, we'll go make the call later, make the call now. Stop. Make sure you complete your task. That is a big failing. Get from A to B in the shortest distance possible. I think that's a major component. What have you experienced in what you're seeing as how you're transitioning?
Well, what's interesting to me and what you've helped actually expose me to is this idea that the younger generations, right, Generation X is probably split about 50-50. Then we have the baby boomers and we have Generation Y on the other two sides of Generation X, right?
Right.
So breaking it up into those compartments, what we've seen is the older generations, the baby boomers and the top half of Generation X, are really out of touch with online.
They're technophobic.
Yeah, they don't understand online marketing. They don't really know, they don't understand what it does. I can't tell you how many CPAs who are seasoned tell me, I don't know what I can do with Twitter in 140 characters.
You know what's interesting on all that? Every industry I've ever gotten in has always been succeeded by scam people. And so what happens is people come in, they get scammed, and then they just blow out and they don't come back. Well, that's actually the mistake. It's just you haven't found the right vendor for that. So when you find the right vendor, you go, oh my God, what a difference that made. But too many people, once they got burned, they don't ever want to go back and test the water again. There are a lot of very competent search engine optimization companies out there. There's just a lot of good competent companies, but there's also a lot of scams, so that's a huge problem.
Right. And then the other thing is the sort of culture around online marketing is probably very much counterintuitive to classic marketing, right? Classic marketing, we're not used to the two-way message, right? We're used to one way. I shove a message down your throat so you can buy my product, and social media is not about that.
You know, it's interesting you're mentioning that because one of the things that I talk about, before the internet, the salesperson was the almighty person in the company. They had a lot of position of power. The internet came along and companies felt like, oh, salespeople are unimportant. And along comes social media again, and guess what? The salesperson is back to being the important person. And this is what I'm trying to teach people. I wish that social media was around 20 years ago. You've got a billboard for yourself out there, and people are not taking advantage of having a billboard. That's your photo. That's on your social media highway.
Right, and not only that, but never before have you had access to the kind of information that we have access to so instantly. You used to have to spend millions of dollars to find out information that you can get for no cost in minutes right now by simply using the analytics that are out there. So you can, you can literally, when you watch a YouTube video of your own, you can get the analytics that tell you where people are stopping it, right? Which means they're probably pausing it and they can tell you where they're pausing and replaying it. They're going to tell you what point it peaks out at in terms of the audience. They're going to tell you what point people are clicking away and stopping to watch it. You can use that information to improve upon your media going forward. It's so easy. And so, but going back to the original question, we have that top half, the older generation, who really don't get online marketing. They don't get how it works. And the counterintuitive part to them, I think, is that in the past, it was like, you don't give anything away for free. Now the whole model is, I give away lots of information for free because then it becomes a program of attraction. Right. And the other part is we have to teach the upper tiers of the generations there to be patient because it's a slower building process.
Well, that's the same thing with face-to-face networking. Is you can't get involved in a networking group and instantaneously start expecting referrals, but they can happen pretty quickly if you are dependable, if you show up at your meetings, if you're posting information, if you're giving leads to other people. You know, there's several different expressions out there. One of my competitors says, Givers gain, and mine is you got to give to get. So you got to think about that dollar bill that sits in your pocket and where you're spending it. And is that dollar bill, is your accountant giving you business? Is your insurance guy, your attorney, your car wash guy? All these people should be giving you business. That's part of your circle of influence, and people never seem to look at that circle of influence. I actually learned that from one of my employees 25 years ago, and I was selling computer products, and I'll never forget it. I said to her name's Liz, and I said, Liz, what are you doing? She was going through her checkbook, and she says, I don't do business with people that don't do business with me. So she cut up her American Express card, she cut up her Visa card, and she was going through her checkbook and all that stuff and calling companies. And I adopted that philosophy over 25 years ago when I started selling, that every time I went through a recession, I made sure that that became a focal point. That's one of the reasons I got into this, doing the networking events, is teaching people some simple rules. You can't tell me that you're not struggling out there. I mean, very few clients that or prospects that we talk to are not struggling. And if they say, oh, I'm busy as can be, it's because they just laid off people and had to do more work themselves.
Right.
So how do you get out of that trap? How do you get back to the old ways of making a decent amount of money and not killing yourself to get there, getting some free time and not being stressed out of your mind? Well, this stuff does work. It actually works.
Right. And that, I think, brings us to the bottom half of the generational tiers, right? Then we've got the Gen Ys and the lower half of the Generation X, where they get social media, they get the online world,
right?
But they don't get in person.
They don't understand people,
and because they're so used to, I think, being on the computer. I mean, I'll never forget. I met with a CPA a couple of years ago. This is a true story. He told me, I was blown away by this when he told me this, but he swore it was true. He interviewed a candidate, right? So we're talking about a Gen Y person, right? So he interviewed this candidate for a job at a CPA firm. This is somebody who had an accounting degree, had plenty of education, and after the interview, apparently she sends him a text message using standard text shortcode, right, with the abbreviations where instead of writing out the word "your," they put the letters "UR." She sent him a message like that, thanking him for the interview.
Oh, interesting.
And so to me, and the point I'm making is that is such a poor demonstration of communication skills. There's a time and place, right?
Exactly.
And so I think what happens is you get these younger generations, they're so used to being in this digital environment that they lose complete sight of what to do in the in-person world.
Right.
And especially when you're talking about networking and building a business,
right.
We're talking about they don't know how to ask for the order and they don't know how to close a sale.
That's right. That's right.
And those are the two most important things.
You know, basic principle. Selling is, there's a reason why you have two of these and one of these. If you're not listening to your client or your prospect and understanding what their issues are, you shouldn't be selling them. Because if you're not really figuring out what their need is, you're not a very good salesperson. And I talk about that all the time.
Right. And so that's what really attracted me to Edge Up Network. Once you broke down the initial barrier and I actually started to listen to you, then that's what I started to get was, okay, now I understand what Bob means by bridging the gap. We're going to take these split generations and bring them together and make them understand one another.
Right. And I'll tell you one thing, Seth, I think, picked up a little bit on my enthusiasm because I love what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. When I'm getting feedback from my clients on a daily basis that it's working, that they're getting referrals, we're seeing it posted on the internet, how many referrals are being given out on a constant basis, man, you can't do anything but love what you're doing. And these are tough times, so, you know.
Well, and I'll tell you,
things feel good.
The funniest thing about this all, probably the most ironic thing is, you know where I crossed over the line where I really began to trust you?
Where?
Was when I actually met you in person.
Oh, that's right. And the honesty was, I called him, I pushed him, and he didn't show up, and finally he agreed, and he was very reluctant.
Yes.
He was very reluctant.
Well, the first time I tried to come, I remember I got lost.
Right.
And I was so frustrated because while I was lost, I had actually gotten a call from a prospect off the dinner, and I was like, see, I had no idea. Well, I got the address wrong, so I was going to the wrong place. But the point is, so I tried, and that was almost like, in my mind, that was like further proof that I have no business going to be anywhere in person. It's a waste of time. And then, like you're saying, I finally showed up in person, but there was something that as soon as I got to actually meet you face to face, it hit me how right you were about what a difference it makes when you can actually meet somebody in person. that all of a sudden where I had, I was skeptical because I'd never met you in person and I didn't really know you that well. So, but once I met you in person, it was like, boom, okay, now this is a real person. It made all the difference.
And here's my prediction. This is my prediction. My prediction is that Seth is going to pick up more business based on what we're doing than his other forms of marketing. But what then we're going to do is we're also going to go back, and here's always the equation. If something doesn't work the first time, don't look at your vendor as a failure. Look at that you're working as a partnership to grow this. So if we fail at something, then we go back and we figure out what didn't work. We're not in business to do harm to our clients. We're in business to understand what each other's issues are and learn how to grow from there. So if you ask me what another major component of this is, work with your vendors. Work with people to do that. You'll know in a short order whether or not it's really making sense or if they're willing to take the time to make that commitment. Seth even cut off my access to help him.
Oh, that's right. Well, yeah, that's right. At one point I did. I got, because something happened that kind of freaked me out. And I said, okay, I'm not sure about what these guys are doing.
Right.
That's right. But then we talked.
But that's the learning process of learning what your needs are. We're not inside our client's head right away. We have to learn from what their needs are. And as we learn that, then we can keep moving forward. And to be honest with you, we don't charge very much money for this. We almost charge nothing for what we're doing. And if it gives you such a huge result, usually one customer pays for my services for either a month or up to a year or several months or something like that.
Well, not only that,
all I got to do is get that one customer for you.
Right. But then not only that, but I get the one customer, and then that customer starts referring me business.
Exactly.
And it may not even be the customer. I met with Charles today for lunch, whom I met directly through the group.
Right.
He may never be a client of mine, but he may refer me people.
Well, that's the objective.
And yeah, and actually he probably will become a client of mine. He made it pretty clear. But the point is, you never know where it's going to come from and how it's going to come together.
That's right.
But one thing that I've started to realize is that now, because I'm meeting with people in person, and they're holding live in-person events here where we live,
right.
I'm now getting invited to come speak at events, which gives me an opportunity. This is where we literally connect online and offline, because I'll get the opportunity to go speak to people. They'll have the know, like, and trust factor, because they get to see me in person, so I have a much better chance of gaining people's trust on an in-person forum. And then while I'm talking about my topic, let's say it's technology and how I use Evernote to increase efficiencies in my business,
right.
And then I can frankly backsell the online course that I have that's in development now, that by the time I start speaking about it, will be rolled out, available for people to go sign up, so that by the time I'm done talking with them, the people are so excited they can't wait to just get on their iPhones and Androids and go to my website and sign up for my course.
The biggest mistake that I've seen over the years that companies have made is when they started cutting back, one of the things that they cut back was their marketing. That's the last thing that you want to, if you have to cut some employees, that's what you got to do. But when you cut out your marketing, you're cutting out the ability to create new clients. And that's what people need today. They need more clients because many of their clients have either gone under or they've cut back. And that's a huge problem. So you've got to grow the business. You can't do that by cutting out how you bring your business in.
Right. And even along those lines, what I like to tell clients, especially from my accounting background, is before you start cutting labor, that's usually the first place companies look to cut back.
That's
because
right.
It's the most expensive thing the biggest line item on any company's books usually is their labor. But what I've been trying to tell people, first of all, from a strictly philosophical standpoint, is let's try our best not to have anybody have to lose their job.
Exactly.
So what do we do instead of that? In order to help people keep their jobs, we have to appeal to them directly and specifically and say, hey, help us become more productive. So we take our staff, no matter what department they're in, and go to them and ask them for their own feedback. Help us to help you keep your job. In other words, how can you be more productive? How can you help us produce more so that we can get the income in?
That's right.
And the cost.
So you're talking about the technology tools. I call Seth a technologist.
Right.
It's about having more tools that make you more efficient. And what I talk about is the new marketing today is not a very, very costly marketing program, whereas in the old days you spent a fortune to go on radio, put out direct mail pieces, and now you've got social media that is just a phenomenal way. It's viralness. It's how do people find out about you? get viral and keep expanding your horizon.
Right.
And that's what you have a capability of doing.
I have a radio station right now that reaches out to me about once every 6 months. And I'm not kidding, I'm not making this up. They want me to, and it's not even a big radio station. If I remember correctly, I think it's like an AM radio station that's fairly local. They want $750 for like a 30-second plug. And it's usually a promotional thing around a holiday saying, Nerd Enterprises Incorporated wants to remind you not to drive drunk this Labor Day weekend. They want me to pay them $750 for that little blurb.
Right, the difficulty is you're taking basically radio as an offline tool and you're trying to drive them online, which is a very, very difficult transition.
Most people listening to radio when they're in their cars on their way to work. It's not like, hopefully they're not taking out their smartphones at that moment and punching up the website.
And getting a $150 ticket for texting.
So maybe you weren't driving drunk, but you crashed into a pole because you were busy typing up nerdenterprises.com. But, and so the point is now, especially more than ever, I mean, I told you, I don't know if you had a chance to see it yet, but I interviewed Chris Perillo recently.
Right.
And one of the questions I asked him, and I asked him on purpose, knowing what the answer was going to be, but I wanted to make sure the audience was going to hear it, was I actually asked, I came at it from a little different angle. I asked him if he thought that there was any kind of a business out there that maybe shouldn't be or didn't need to be doing video and video marketing and putting content on YouTube. And he didn't even hesitate before he said, absolutely not. Everybody has to be doing video. And the beauty of it is the way technology is headed, we each have our own television network where we can broadcast whatever content we want. And the smart ones are doing things the way TV networks do things, where I have set programming. That's why I have my Interview with the Guru series every Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, and I make sure it's advertised that way so people know this is the day and time to come to watch that program.
Well, that's interesting you're bringing that up, because I'm concerned that so many businesses do not understand that video is a huge component of search now. Same with social media. Social media helps you with your SEO, your search engine optimization of your website, because those are inbound links to your website. Same thing with video. Google gives brownie points for people that have videos up there. They spent I think it was $1.7 billion for YouTube. They certainly wanted it to pay off, but they were also ahead of their times in understanding that there's a personal component to video, that it's no longer a flat photo of something, that video brings humanness into the equation, and that helps with anything. People that are not putting that on the front page of their websites, I think, are making a huge mistake.
Yeah.
And I'm making a huge mistake because I don't have one up there yet.
Well, that's why I recently redesigned my website. I've been waiting to find the right template to use where I could feature videos. And I found it recently. That's why as soon as I saw this template that I used, when you go to my website now, you'll see just about every single page has a video. In the very beginning, gives you a little slideshow. The first thing says thank you, and then if you wait, I think I said it's like 50,000 milliseconds or something like that, but it slides over, and the next thing that it shows is a video of me talking about how I redesigned the website.
I have so many clients already that are really trying to capture some time out of Seth. Joel Barnahama with the Evernote, he is like worshiping you.
Yes, he was talking about that.
He's worshiping you on that. Same with Marie Gregorian and some of the tools you're giving her to help her. And she's a business coach, a very, very good business coach. And she's, trying to capture more and more Seth's time in how teaching her how to become more efficient.
And she's been a tremendous help to me.
Right.
Because I'll be honest, I can be a little hard-headed, especially when it comes to receiving advice from somebody else about how to run my business. Because, I can get stuck in ego and say, I know how to run my business. I've built a business. I've been very successful all these years so far, and it's just gone up and up and up for me. And I really have to humble myself and remind myself that here is somebody who has the background and experience who can help guide me.
Right.
And even if it's just pointing out the obvious, a lot of times I need the obvious pointed out to me to remind me of what I need to be doing.
Yeah, Marie Gregorian 2 weeks ago made 3 suggestions for me. And I listened, and I went in and I made 3 changes immediately, and I think I flabbergasted her that I actually went in and took care of that, because we all, surround ourselves with some really competent people. If we're not listening, I listen to my clients. That's why my company has evolved to the place that it is today. And if you're not listening to your clients, you're a fool. You've got to listen to your clients because they're going to tell you what they need and they direct you as to where to go. And too many clients or too many companies today just don't listen. That's a huge mistake.
Right, right. And I know I need to. I know I've learned from many different areas.
Well, I'm listening to you.
Of my life. But, I know sometimes the smartest thing I can do is take the cotton out of my ears, put it in my mouth, and just listen, take the guidance, take the direction, and then actually do it.
And your business is growing.
My business is growing without a doubt.
My business is growing.
Right.
And my business is growing because we're offering up a tool that somebody needs, and people need it pretty desperately at this point. So, the people that don't listen, I remember a few years ago, I gave a seminar, we had 100, 120 people, and my daughter made a PowerPoint for me, and I had 3 people, and this is, when I got into the internet, I talked about the people not adopting change. So at the top, it was 2 people embracing each other. In the middle, it was a gentleman that was bailing out his rowboat. So these 2 were adopting change. This guy is less adoptive of making change, and the last one was a guy pulling on a donkey, and the donkey was not budging. Which one do you want to be? Because that's happening today, and it's happening at a much more accelerated pace. You've got the iPhone, you have the iPad now, you have people constantly interfacing. One of the things I also talk about, and this is juncturing aside just a bit, is that listen to your people how you need to communicate with them. So if you get people that don't respond to calling and they respond to texting, don't try to change them. Adopt what they're comfortable doing up to a point. Because that's a very, very vital aspect. Also, one of the big things that people are making huge mistakes on today is they write these long paragraphs and emails and stuff like that of it. People have short attention spans today, so you have to put everything in bullet sentences. That is a huge piece of your marketing that you need to keep it very, very brief, because I read the first sentence. I don't read the entire paragraph.
Yeah.
That's what most people do today. What are you looking at?
I'm looking up something because just recently I read something that actually Chris Perillo sent me the link to this. I have to find it. It's a web page that talks about exactly what you're talking about. When you're sending an email, just tell people what they need to know.
Exactly.
It's funny. Twitter has taught me substantially how to do
keep
that.
it down to 140 characters.
Keep it down to 140 characters.
Yep.
You know how many times I'll write a tweet
Yep.
and it's way over that, but I've learned how to go in there and cut out the fat, and it makes me realize how much fat there is in a lot of what I write, that I don't need to have it there to get the message across.
So what do you feel about the abbreviated, the U and the R and stuff like that? Because I do it all the time.
You want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
I think it makes a person. I think it's a poor reflection. Honestly, I think it makes a person. When I get a message from somebody with that kind of abbreviations, with those kinds of abbreviations, I feel like I'm talking to an adolescent. To be honest with you, I feel like I'm talking to somebody who's between the ages of 13 and 16, maybe, because that's kids talk that way.
Right.
To me, in business communication, I don't think, and this is just my opinion, I don't think it has a place there. I think in business communication, it's important to, it's kind of like having your resume making sure that you don't have any typos on it.
That's probably a change I need to make.
I'm just being honest about that.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people do it, but again, when I get a message like that, and it depends, like if you and I are texting one another and it's
right. No, I'm talking about
But if I'm texting a prospect
when you're posting on Twitter.
Oh, right. Even
what do you do on Twitter?
On Twitter, I don't use I'll shorten all my links. I'll use the link shorteners, right, to save space.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I write out my words completely.
Do you?
Once in a while, I'll abbreviate something, or I know when I use Google Voice and I use the talk, and I'm talking, Google Voice will do that. So instead of writing out the word 1, it'll use the number 1. Some of that stuff to me is okay, but again, I'm just speaking to the reaction I have without really thinking about it. When I get a message from somebody, I get the feeling that when somebody uses some of that short code, I get the feeling like I'm talking to a young kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't seem that professional.
Do I look that young? Well, that's advice that I'm heeding from you, and that I've got to figure out how to get very, very important information across
Right.
in as brief a structure as you can, and still get the idea across.
Right.
That's always the difficulty.
And here's the thing, especially because we're talking about sales, right?
Right.
And one of the things, first of all, email is highly, highly inefficient, right? Because I have to write out a message, then I have to wait for you to read it, write a response, then you start. If it's a lot of content, then you got to write inline responses, and it grows, and it's just messy, right?
Right.
One of the things I've learned, especially in sales, is it's much more efficient to get somebody on the phone. So I agree with you when you say that you have to learn what somebody else's preferred mode of communication is and conform to that. So our best bet as salespeople, and if we own a small business, I don't care what you think, you're a salesperson, right?
Right, right.
So to me, it's so important at that point to learn how to respond to all these mediums. Learn how to use your phone to send text messages. You have to, because it's a way of doing business today.
That's right.
Learn how to use email. I think everybody's got that covered pretty well. Learn how to use Twitter. You can have really fast, short bursts of information type conversations on Twitter, but you can get a lot done quickly. But the main thing is, once it goes beyond, if I have to spend more than 5 minutes, let's say, writing an email, my thing is usually I say to the person, you know what, call me, we can get this done a lot faster. Then, once I've had the conversation with the person, and we've hashed out whatever we need to deal with, then I send a follow-up email for lots of reasons, namely CYA, right?
Right.
Where I will actually say, here's my understanding of what we discussed. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's my understanding of what you're going to do. And then you ask them to reply to that and make sure that you're on the same page. So that way you have the in-writing version of it, and so that you're clear. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had situations where we had the verbal conversation, didn't do that email follow-up, and then later on somebody did or didn't do something different from what I expected.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, we miscommunicated.
So do you make most of your sales over the phone?
Without a doubt. In fact, when I had hired...
This is what I preach about. I've had so many young people that work for me, and they try to sell via email or texting and all that. And I said it's a huge mistake, because you cannot read the person and the intonations that they're giving you and the feedback they're giving you. And from one comment, that's going to initiate a response out of you, which is going to lead to the next comment. You can't go back and forth. It's going to actually take longer to go back and forth in trying to understand what the issues are than just simply getting on the phone and closing the deal by getting a good conversation.
And I'll tell you what I'm starting to do, and I'm starting to see it work. In fact, it worked at the last power group that I was at, where what I did was, I developed my online training sites.
Right.
And I have two main ones right now. I have my accounting for real estate, and I have what I call QuickBooks Answers, which is the QuickBooks support site. So in either place, people can sign up, and they go online, they make a payment, and then they can schedule time with me. The real estate site is strictly online tutorials where they just, once they pay, they have access. So the point being that that real estate site is now almost exclusively sold online. Because what I did was, but here's what I did, I used video. So instead of me being on the phone with the person, I had enough experience by now to know what the questions are going to be. And then I also took feedback from people who had actually used this site. One guy said, you know what, there needs to be an outline. I hadn't put an outline up there. He says, I happened to sign up because I saw a bunch of your videos and I was motivated. He says, but I can see where other people might be weird. They're not sure what they're getting when they sign up. So he says, you should really put it, and I did. And I put the outline up there, and I did see an increase in sales. The point I want to make is, then I did, also at this same guy's suggestion, a virtual tour where I did a video, a screencast, showing you here's what you will get once you've paid and signed up. Here's the content that you can't see now, right, because you haven't paid yet. And so the videos do the sales, but I'll tell you something, I still rely heavily on the phone to close sales, and here's why. And well, I'll tell you the backstory behind this. When I had an internet marketing consultant whom I had hired, you know him, Mark Levin.
Oh, sure, yeah.
When I hired Mark Levin, one of the things that he told me, well, we had a conversation, right? He came to my home office and he started walking me through how to use LinkedIn and all this. And then we started talking about the content that I create, the videos and so on, that I create and put out there on the internet. And he said to me, he said, Seth, first of all, there needs to be a call to action on everything you do. You need to tell people what you want them to do. If you don't tell them what you want them to do, they won't know and they'll get lost. He said, especially with a guy like you, and he was referring to me, of course, where there's so much, He says, I come to your website, I don't know what you want me to do, right? So I had to tell him. So then he asked me, he says, so before we go any further, I need to ask you, what do you want people to do? And I said, well, what do you mean? I want them to become clients. And he says, no, you got to go deeper than that.
Exactly.
What specific action do you want them to take by the time they're done at your website? And he said, I'll give you examples. Do you want them to fill out a form? Do you want them to subscribe to your email newsletter? Or do you want them to call you? And as soon as he said that one, I stopped him and I said, stop right there. That's what I want. I know I'm comfortable talking on the phone. I'm good on the phone. Right? I have experience as a stockbroker. I learned how to sell on the phone. But most importantly, like you mentioned before about the enthusiasm, I know that because I'm so excited and pumped up about what I'm doing every day, that in itself sells. So if I get somebody on the phone with me, I know the sale is pretty much made. It's just a matter of explaining to them the logistics of how things work. Because they're going to hear the excitement in my voice and they're going to get excited. It's contagious. So,
I totally get it. I mean, I've been trying to teach landing pages to people for 15 years. That it amazes me how many people have gone out and spent money on AdWords and they send them to the home page. There's no call to action on the home page. There's just a bunch of verbiage sitting out there that you need for the content for the SEO a lot of the times, and it doesn't give the result because you're not offering them something that inspires them to get off their rear ends and say, I got to do this now. And there's too much clutter in there for them to make decisions. So you don't lead them to, order now, anything like that. If that's missing, why would you take a keyword and that is very, very targeted and not talk about that specific part of your product offering in the landing page? That is so vital. Take that one, if you are a real estate attorney, but you also do estate planning and all these others, why would you send them to the home page when you buy the word is real estate attorney? It should go to a real estate page.
Right.
So that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny. That's one of the things I did with the accounting for real estate site is the original domain I bought wasn't that pretty. It was QuickBooks-for-real-estate.com. I tried to do that initially as one string, but it was taken.
Right.
But I said, well, that's as close as I can get, and at least I know I've got my keywords in the domain name, which I know is very important.
That's right.
Then I later discovered, and I was just playing around, I was like, I need a prettier looking domain name to use when I'm putting it out there first. It's giving people something to click on. And it's a long domain, but it kind of says it perfectly. The domain I wound up getting, which I was surprised was available, was accountingforrealestate.com. No, it was realestateaccountingwithquickbooks.com.
Oh, interesting.
It says it perfectly.
Because people are probably typing that in.
And people are going to remember that.
Right.
So realestateaccountingwithquickbooks.com, and what I found was, I bought that URL, and I redirected it over to the Accounting for Real Estate site. And what I found over time was I started ranking. If we Google QuickBooks for Real Estate right now, I can guarantee you I'm going to come up on the home page.
Yeah, because you've got the keyword in there, and it's probably a very popular search that goes on.
Yep. QuickBooks for Real Estate. I'm going to do it right now. Because it's always interesting to try this when you're in different places because it's regional. The Google search results are regional, right?
It's interesting. One of the things that I talk to my clients all the time about is I promise I'm not going to become an expert in what they're doing. Why would they want to take the time to try to become a social media guru? It just doesn't make any sense when you're talking about very, very low expenses to get a whole bunch of horsepower, and we're watching what's happening with the social media sites.
Right.
Is that something you're going to start paying attention to, that you're going to start doing and figuring out? What do you know that's going on with Google+? What are the changes that are going on there?
Right.
What's coming up with the changes on Facebook now that they're going public?
Right.
There's going to be a lot of change going on, and big companies are fighting for those eyeballs, so you can expect that even more rapid change is going to take place in social media.
And it all comes back to video. Now, you were saying before about video and search results. Look what I got when I searched accounting for real estate, or I searched, what was the actual search term here? I searched QuickBooks for real estate, right?
Right.
All right, so first I get an Intuit website, because that's who owns QuickBooks, of course.
Right.
Okay, then this is another paid link, right, for these guys. Look what's next. And guess whose video this is?
Oh, that's funny. Don't you spell your name S-E-T-H, David? That's you.
Right. So, and mine is the first organic result. One of my videos on YouTube called QuickBooks for Real Estate Rental Properties, how to account for, and I don't even remember the rest of the title.
Right.
But I infused my video title with keywords and it ranks. Right?
And I bet you're getting a lot of hits on it.
Okay, and I do. A lot of people that call me up with questions about it, they're all searching for me on the web and they saw my videos. And now, not that far down, first there's a bunch of videos, and they're all my videos, notice. This is the only one that's not mine, right here.
Interesting.
Okay, so let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 videos. This one is the virtual tour that I did of my real estate site.
And isn't it kind of interesting that it's all video?
That's what I mean. And so, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
4 of my videos. The 5th one is somebody else's video, and then look what's after that. Look what's the first non-video organic result.
I am glad you stopped by.
No, but look at the website. Guess whose site that is?
Oh,
that's my accounting for real estate
there
website.
it is. There it is. Yep. I'm sorry, I did miss that.
No, it's okay. So I'm right there. I'm ranked.
Yeah.
And we're not in Burbank anymore. I always have ranked well in Burbank because everything's IP address based, right?
Right.
Google reads your IP address and they try and produce relevant results based on geolocation.
Right.
And more that's becoming important. I mean, geolocation is critically important. Mark Levin has been teaching me more recently that, in terms of ranking, and in terms of, social media, you want to first rank in your own backyard.
That's right.
So, and how well that ties into what we're doing at EdgeUp, as far as let's bring you together with people who are here locally, and you should also focus your search engine efforts on ranking well in your own backyard first. Then you can branch out.
Right. Well, I constantly theme on that is that your low-hanging fruit of clientele is people that are right around you, not across the country. That's, up till the last few years, there's never been one single site that captured local. Now that is happening even more so. Google's done a phenomenal job of Google Local, Google Places, and if you don't know how to rank in Google Local, that's the of them to get in terms of your search engines if you know what you're doing.
Right.
So, again, do you want to become an expert on search engine optimization for local?
Right.
There's a lot of people should not be paying a lot of money to get placed on Google Local.
Right.
They should be paying a reasonable amount of money, but this is not the heavy-duty expenses that you should be incurring.
Well, you know what? Let's give away one free tip on that while we're talking about it.
Okay.
If you haven't done this already, then you have to go to Google Places and claim your listing. Number 1, it's free. Number 2, if you don't, somebody else might grab it and then try and sell it to you. I don't know if they can do that legally, but the point is, grab your listing, it's free and it'll help you rank locally. So it's funny, if you Google the term Google Places, you'll get to the site. And then basically you punch in your address, your business address. Google has probably already indexed it for you and basically linked you up with your address. All you have to do is click on that little link that says this is mine, and then you can fill out your whole profile, and you can even include, guess what Google lets you do? They even let you tag videos into your profile. So if you have videos, like I do, that speak to who you are, what you do, and who you do it for, then you should definitely tag those videos in. And because it's Google, and YouTube is Google, it's very easy and integrated to get that content right in there.
And a few good third-party reviews of your business certainly don't hurt.
Right. All right, well, this has been great. I'm going to have you on my interview series on Monday nights very soon.
Love to.
This way, because I think we can take, a discussion like this one we're having and really bring value to the audience that's out there. There's so many people who are so hungry to learn about this kind of stuff.
Make your life easy. That's all I got to say. You don't have to make it complicated, but you got to find a good resource. That's number 1. And you've got to dip your toe in the water. If you don't dip your toe in the water, you're not going to get very far.
Right. And one of the things, by the way, I'll close with this, that I really liked about what you were doing with EdgeUp when I first started talking to you, was that it looked to me, and correct me if this is not the case, but it looked to me like you were really carefully hand-selecting people for each group to not just get somebody who represents an industry, but to pick based on personality types to make sure that you had the right complements of people within each group.
Yeah, we try to create roundness. The reality of that, we're talking about people, and you find out a lot about people. Then the key is to Work with the people that have the enthusiasm. The ones that have the enthusiasms are the people that you need to surround yourself with. If you've got somebody that's is a downer and somebody that really doesn't want to get involved, all they do is become a plague on your groups, and you have to either change them or get them out. That's really the key. I've got some great groups that are growing and coming together, and they love what's going on. Again, read about it on the group on LinkedIn under the Edge Up Network. You know, there's a group there.
Right,
Edge Up Network.
Yeah, just search LinkedIn in the groups for Edge Up Network,
Right.
and you'll find me in there posting a lot of stuff. You'll find Bob in there. What's the phone number again if somebody wants to get in touch with you?
310-736-5787. And you know what? Call some of the people that are mentioned in there. You can connect with them. They'll tell you what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Straight from the horse's mouth, as they say.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for your time. That was
All right.
great. Glad to be here.